If she chose someone else, let her. Not out of pride, but out of peace. Because a woman who can replace you didn't recognize your value in the first place. And chasing what's already walking away only weakens your spirit. The truth is, letting go isn't loss. It's power. Stay until the end. Because the final reason to walk away quietly, without anger or revenge, that's where real freedom begins. Sacred choice. The very first, and perhaps the most fundamentally crucial, understanding that must dawn within a man's heart, like the first rays of light after a long dark night, when she chooses another, is the profound, unequivocal recognition of her inherent, sacred, and inviolable right to choose her own path, her own partner, her own unique destiny in this lifetime. This is not always, and often not at all, an easy truth to fully embrace, especially when your own heart is deeply, vulnerably invested, when your own cherished dreams and carefully constructed future plans were intricately, lovingly woven with the perceived thread of her presence and her partnership. The ego, in its inevitable pain, its profound bewilderment, and its sense of personal affront, may cry out with vehemence against the perceived injustice, the stinging rejection, the seeming irrationality or cruelty of her decision. It may desperately want to argue its case, to passionately persuade her of her error, to meticulously demonstrate, point by point, why her choice is fundamentally misguided, why you are, in fact, the better, more suitable, more deserving option. But to engage in this ultimately futile and diminishing struggle is to fundamentally misunderstand, at a very deep level, the sacred nature of individual free will and the profound, often unseen, and deeply personal spiritual currents that guide individual souls on their unique, often unpredictable, and always sacred journeys of growth and evolution. Every human being, at their very core, possesses an inviolable, inherent sovereignty, a sacred, God-given capacity to make choices that align with their own perceived good, their own evolving inner needs, their own soul's unique calling and curriculum, however opaque, illogical, or even profoundly painful those choices may appear to others, even and perhaps especially to those who love them most deeply and sincerely. To truly, authentically respect her as an individual, as a sovereign, autonomous being with her own inner compass and her own sacred contract with life, means to consciously, courageously choose to honor her choice, even and most especially when that choice brings you profound, heart-wrenching personal pain. It means acknowledging, with as much grace as you can muster, that her path, her unique lessons, her deepest desires, may now be leading her in a direction that no longer includes you in the same intimate, partnered way. And that this, in the grand, often incomprehensible and intricate tapestry of life, is her sacred, undeniable prerogative. This profound acceptance does not, in any way, diminish the love that was shared between you, nor does it invalidate the preciousness or authenticity of the connection that once was, but it does, unequivocally, demand a courageous, unwavering acceptance of the present, undeniable reality, a profound willingness to consciously step back, to release your energetic grip, and to allow her the sacred space and freedom to follow the trajectory that her own soul, her own inner guidance is now clearly, undeniably dictating for her. The hard, often unpalatable truth that the ego fiercely resists here is that any attempt to manipulate, to coerce through guilt or emotional blackmail, to subtly pressure or to aggressively argue her out of her freely made choice is not, in any true sense, an act of genuine love. It is rather a clear and often desperate act of egoic attachment, a painful manifestation of your own fear of loss, a refusal to truly honor her autonomy and her individual journey. It stems from a deep-seated, often unconscious desire to control, to possess, to dictate, rather than from a genuine, selfless wish for her ultimate, highest good, even if that good, from her perspective, is now to be found with another. Letting her go in this profound and challenging context thus becomes an act of immense, sacred respect. Respect for her inherent agency as a sovereign being, respect for the unique, unfolding journey of her soul, and ultimately, a profound respect for the mysterious, often paradoxical unfolding of life itself, which frequently operates according to a divine wisdom, a cosmic intelligence, far beyond our limited human comprehension or control. This act of release is a painful, perhaps even agonizing offering for your heart to make, but it is an offering that courageously preserves your own intrinsic dignity, profoundly honors hers, and creates the crucial possibility for a cleaner, more peaceful, and ultimately more healing energetic severance for both of you. To desperately fight her choice is to inevitably diminish both yourself and her in the process. To courageously, gracefully honor it, however profoundly difficult it may be, is to consciously align yourself with a deeper, more sacred, more spiritually mature understanding of true love, authentic freedom, and profound self-respect. This honoring is not a passive act, it is an active alignment with the fundamental dignity of all beings, a recognition that love cannot be owned, only offered and received freely, a profound acceptance that sets the stage for your own healing by first respecting the inherent right of another to their own sovereign journey, even when that journey diverges heartbreakingly from your own most cherished hopes. Inner mirror. When she, the woman who held a significant place in your heart and your life, makes the definitive choice to be with another man, the immediate, almost reflexive, and deeply human reaction for many men is to instinctively look outward, to intensely focus their pain, their anger, their confusion on external factors. They might obsessively scrutinize the perceived flaws, the supposed manipulations, or the unfair advantages of the other man she has chosen. Or they might endlessly, tortuously dissect her stated or implied reasons, her perceived betrayals, her apparent lack of loyalty or appreciation, replaying painful scenarios over and over in their minds, seeking someone or something external to blame for their profound suffering. But the path of true, transformative growth, the precious, often disguised opportunity for profound evolution that is always embedded within such painful, ego-shattering experiences, lies not in this futile outward projection, but in courageously, consciously choosing to turn the powerful, illuminating gaze inward. It lies in bravely, humbly using this profoundly challenging moment not as a weapon for self-flagellation, but as a potent, albeit initially unwelcome, inner mirror. This is not, I must strongly emphasize, about engaging in destructive self-blame, wallowing in feelings of inadequacy, or descending into a dark, hopeless spiral of shame and self-pity. It is rather about undertaking a sincere, unflinching, courageous, and ultimately compassionate self-inventory, a radically honest assessment of your own authentic contributions, both conscious and unconscious, both positive and negative, to the complex relational dynamic that ultimately, tragically, led to this painful outcome. Ask yourself, with a level of radical honesty that may feel deeply uncomfortable but is absolutely essential for growth, were you truly, consistently, and authentically present in the relationship, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually? Did you consciously, actively, and joyfully nurture the precious connection? Or did you, perhaps through complacency, distraction, or unconscious fear, allow stagnation, neglect, or emotional distance to subtly, insidiously creep in and erode the foundations of intimacy? Were you genuinely attuned to her deepest needs, her most cherished desires, her often unspoken emotional longings? Or were you, perhaps more often than you'd like to admit, primarily focused on your own needs, your own comfort, your own agenda? Did you consistently, unwavering embody the essential qualities of a man she could deeply, unreservedly trust, profoundly respect with her whole being, and courageously, vulnerably open her sacred heart to? Not just in the beginning, but throughout the entire duration of your shared journey? Did you listen more than you spoke, seek to understand more than to be understood? This meticulous, often painful inner mirroring is not undertaken for the ultimately futile and ego-driven purpose of somehow discovering a magical formula to win her back, for that particular ship, in all likelihood, has already definitively sailed from the harbor of possibility. It is undertaken instead for the infinitely more valuable, more enduring, and more empowering purpose of your own personal evolution, your own profound spiritual learning, your own courageous becoming a more conscious, more awake, more emotionally intelligent, and more authentically whole man. The acute, searing pain of her definitive choice, if you allow it, can serve as an incredibly potent, transformative catalyst, powerfully illuminating those often hidden, unacknowledged areas within your own psyche, your own character, your own emotional landscape, that urgently require your loving attention, your compassionate healing, or your dedicated conscious growth. Perhaps these are deeply ingrained patterns of emotional unavailability or avoidance, unaddressed childhood wounds that manifest as crippling insecurities or defensive behaviors in adult relationships, significant communication deficits that prevent true intimacy from flourishing, or a fundamental lack of clarity regarding your own core values, your deepest desires, and your non-negotiable needs in a committed partnership. The hard, often resisted truth is that it is far, far easier for the wounded ego to defensively project blame outwards, to conveniently cast her as fickle, ungrateful, or cruel, or to demonize him as a cunning usurper or an unworthy rival, than it is to courageously, humbly face the often uncomfortable, sometimes shattering truths that this sacred inner mirror might reveal about ourselves, about our own unacknowledged contributions to the relationship's demise. But to consistently avoid this vital, albeit challenging, inner work is to tragically miss a profound, life-altering opportunity for genuine transformation, to unconsciously condemn oneself to potentially, repeatedly, and painfully reenacting similar self-sabotaging patterns in all future relationships, leading to a recurring cycle of heartbreak and disappointment. Letting her go in this deeper, more empowering context means also, and perhaps most importantly, courageously letting go of the insidious, disempowering need to make her or her choices responsible for your ongoing emotional state, your fundamental sense of self-worth, or your future happiness. It means consciously, powerfully reclaiming your own inherent emotional sovereignty, taking full, unconditional ownership of your own vast, complex inner landscape, and wholeheartedly dedicating yourself to the sacred lifelong work of becoming the most authentic, most evolved, most loving man you are truly, divinely meant to be, entirely independently of her past presence or her current choices. Her decision, however profoundly painful it may be in the present moment, can thus paradoxically become an unintended, precious gift, a sharp, often unwelcome, but ultimately necessary impetus for you to delve more deeply, more honestly, more courageously into the very core of your own being, to consciously cultivate greater self-awareness and emotional intelligence, to courageously heal old, festering wounds from your past, and to ultimately emerge from this crucible stronger, wiser, more compassionate, and more profoundly, authentically aligned with your own true, noble, masculine core. This transformative journey is not about desperately changing yourself to fit her past desires or to meet some external ideal, but about courageously, authentically evolving to fully meet and embody your own highest, most luminous future potential, transforming personal pain into profound personal power. Energetic release. Beyond the crucial emotional processing and the vital mental reframing that are essential components of healing from such a significant relational loss, the conscious act of truly, deeply letting her go when she chooses another man is, at its core, a profound and indispensable act of energetic release. This release is not only for your own ultimate well-being and liberation, but also in a subtle yet significant way for hers as well, allowing both souls to move forward with greater freedom and clarity. Every significant intimate connection, every bond forged in the fires of shared experience and emotional vulnerability, inevitably creates powerful, often invisible energetic cords. Subtle yet incredibly potent psychic links that intimately bind two souls together, constantly, often unconsciously, transmitting thoughts, feelings, emotional energies, and even subtle life force between them. When a relationship ends, particularly under circumstances involving perceived rejection, betrayal, or deep emotional pain, these energetic cords, far from simply dissolving on their own, can become severely entangled, hopelessly twisted, and can continue to insidiously, persistently drain your vital life energy long after the physical separation has occurred, keeping you psychically tethered to the past. Persistently clinging to what was, obsessively replaying painful memories and conversations in your mind, harboring deep-seated resentment or bitterness, or compulsively focusing your mental and emotional energy on her new choice and her new life. All of these common mental and emotional activities serve to keep those old energetic cords powerfully, often toxically, alive and active. This sustained energetic entanglement can create a debilitating state of ongoing energetic depletion for you, a pervasive, heavy feeling of being hopelessly stuck in the past, emotionally paralyzed, and fundamentally unable to move forward with clarity and enthusiasm to embrace new, life-affirming possibilities. It can also, on a more subtle, unseen energetic level, create a kind of energetic drag, interference, or unconscious burden for her, even if she is entirely unaware of its ultimate source, as your unresolved, often negatively charged energy continues to be unconsciously directed towards her and her new situation. The conscious, deliberate act of truly letting her go, therefore, involves far more than just a stoic mental decision or a resigned emotional acceptance of the reality. It is, most crucially, a deliberate, often visualized and deeply intentional process of energetically cutting, dissolving, and releasing those old binding cords. It is a conscious, sovereign act of fully reclaiming your own precious, vital life force, of completely withdrawing your focused attention, your emotional investment, and your psychic energy from her, from the past dynamic, and from all associated expectations and attachments. This is, fundamentally, an act of profound self-care, radical self-love, and essential energetic hygiene. It is about unequivocally stating, on a deep cellular energetic level, I lovingly, completely release you from all my past expectations, all my lingering attachments, all my residual pain and disappointment. I fully, joyfully reclaim all of my own energy, all of my own power, all of my own focus, for my own deep healing, my own authentic growth, and my own sovereign path forward. I sincerely wish you well with all my heart on your chosen journey, and I now fully, courageously, and joyfully embrace mine, unencumbered and free. This intentional energetic release is not always an easy or instantaneous process. It may require repeated, conscious, dedicated effort over time, perhaps involving specific practices like visualization, meditation, or energy healing modalities. But it is absolutely, unequivocally essential for achieving true, lasting liberation and inner peace. As long as you remain unconsciously, energetically entangled with the past, you are, in a very real and debilitating sense, still bound to her, still allowing her past choices and her present life to significantly dictate your inner emotional state and your capacity for future happiness. The hard, often unrecognized truth is that many men and women remain silently, painfully, energetically tethered to past loves, past hurts, past disappointments for years, sometimes even for an entire lifetime, unconsciously, tragically sabotaging their own happiness, their health, and their ability to form new, healthy, vibrant, and fulfilling connections because they have never truly consciously and completely performed this vital, liberating act of energetic severance. They may have moved on physically, even intellectually persuaded themselves that they are over it, but their precious energy, their emotional core, their psychic focus remains insidiously, damagingly hooked into the unresolved dynamics of the past. Letting her go fully, truly, and irrevocably means consciously, lovingly calling back all fragmented parts of yourself that were over-invested, lost, or given away in that connection. It means diligently cleansing your own energetic field of old, stagnant residues of grief, anger, or attachment, and courageously, intentionally creating a clean, clear, luminous space within your being for new life, new love, new inspiration, and new, joyful experiences to gracefully, effortlessly enter. This is not about attempting to angrily erase the past or coldly deny the love and connection that once was, but about consciously alchemically transforming its potent energy from one of painful, binding attachment to one of neutral, peaceful, perhaps even deeply grateful acceptance and release, thereby profoundly freeing yourself to fully, joyfully inhabit your precious present moment and to consciously, powerfully create your most aligned and fulfilling future. This reclamation of energy is paramount, for with it comes clarity, renewed vitality, and the capacity to attract experiences that resonate with your healed, sovereign self rather than with the echoes of past wounds. Sovereign path. When she makes the definitive choice to be with another man, and you in turn make the courageous, conscious, and often profoundly difficult decision to truly, deeply, and completely let her go, you are not merely passively reacting to an unwelcome external event. You are, in that very act of release, consciously, powerfully, and irrevocably reclaiming your own sacred sovereign path in life. For a period of time, perhaps a season, perhaps many years, your individual paths were beautifully, intimately intertwined. Your life journeys seemed to align, your energies appeared to merge, and you may have envisioned a shared destiny unfolding before you. But life, in its infinite, often inscrutable wisdom and its frequently mysterious, unpredictable ways, sometimes dictates, for reasons that may not always be immediately apparent to our limited human understanding, that individual paths must diverge, must separate for the continued growth, the necessary evolution, and the ultimate highest good of the individual souls involved. Her definitive choice, however profoundly painful and personally devastating it may be for you in the moment, serves as a clear, undeniable indication, a stark directional sign that her unique path, her soul's calling, is now leading her in a different, distinct direction, very likely with a different companion by her side. To stubbornly, desperately resist this clear divergence, to attempt to forcefully coerce or manipulate your paths to remain artificially convergent, when the natural, energetic flow of life is powerfully pulling them apart, is to inevitably create immense, unnecessary friction, profound ongoing suffering, and debilitating spiritual stagnation, not only for yourself, but potentially, and often certainly, for her as well. The conscious act of letting her go, in this broader, more expansive context, is therefore a profound acknowledgement of this natural, necessary divergence. It is a respectful, mature acceptance of the truth that your sovereign individual life journeys, at least in this particular intimate configuration of partnership, are no longer meant to be one and the same. This courageous acceptance, paradoxically and often surprisingly, is precisely what liberates you, what empowers you to fully, wholeheartedly re-engage with and joyfully recommit to your own unique, sacred path, your own deeper soul purpose, your own unfolding, unwritten destiny. While the shared journey you once walked together may indeed have been beautiful, profoundly meaningful, may have taught you invaluable, life-altering lessons, may have brought you moments of exquisite, unforgettable joy, it was, it must be remembered, but one significant chapter in the larger, more complex and ever-evolving narrative of your entire precious life. Now, a new unwritten chapter is patiently, expectantly waiting to be authored by you, a chapter that is solely, uniquely, and powerfully yours to create, to imbue with your own values, your own dreams, your own passions. The hard, often challenging truth for the attached ego to accept is that deep, often unconscious attachment to a specific person, to a particular vision of a shared future that we have meticulously constructed in our minds, can sometimes tragically blind us to the broader, more expansive, and often far more aligned possibilities that life, in its infinite generosity, is constantly, subtly trying to offer us. We can become so painfully fixated on what we believe we have irrevocably lost, so consumed by grief and regret, that we utterly fail to see the new, often hidden doors of opportunity that are gently opening all around us, the new, exciting potentials that are quietly, patiently emerging from the fertile soil of change. Her choice, when viewed from this higher, more enlightened perspective, can thus be seen not merely as a source of pain, but as a potent, albeit initially unwelcome, catalyst, a divine intervention perhaps, pushing you, compelling you to courageously reassess your own life's direction, to passionately reconnect with your own deepest, often long-neglected aspirations and soul callings, to perhaps even joyfully discover hidden aspects of yourself, your unique talents, and your authentic life purpose that may have lain dormant, been overshadowed, or were unconsciously suppressed within the confining context or limiting dynamics of the previous relationship. This courageous turning towards your own path is not, I must emphasize, about quickly, defensively trying to replace her or desperately seeking solace and validation in another romantic relationship out of pervasive loneliness, a deeply wounded ego, or a fear of being alone. It is rather about consciously, wholeheartedly turning your primary focus, your precious life energy, and your passionate commitment towards your own intrinsic growth, your own unique passions, your own authentic contribution to the world, whatever form that may ultimately take. It is about becoming so fully, joyfully, and authentically engaged in living your own vibrant, purposeful life, so deeply committed to walking your own sacred, sovereign path, that the acute, searing pain of her absence gradually, naturally, and peacefully transforms into the quiet, steadfast joy of your own becoming, your own self-realization. Letting her go completely and without reservation allows you to stand fully, confidently, and powerfully on your own 2 feet, to draw unwavering strength from your own deep inner resources and innate resilience, to courageously define your own intrinsic worth and your own sustainable happiness entirely independently of any one particular person's presence, approval, or absence in your life. This, in its very essence, is the profound meaning of true, unshakable sovereignty, to be the undisputed, benevolent king of your own vast inner kingdom, consciously, courageously charting your own unique course through life, guided steadfastly by your own infallible inner compass, and walking your own sacred individual path with unwavering courage, profound dignity, unshakable self-respect, and a deep, abiding love for the magnificent being you are continually, gloriously becoming. This redirection of focus is not a flight from pain, but a courageous flight towards purpose, towards the full expression of your individuated self, discovering strengths and passions that lay dormant, while your energy was primarily directed outward toward the maintenance of a shared identity. Empty space. The courageous, definitive act of truly, deeply letting her go when she has unequivocally chosen another man invariably creates an empty space within the landscape of your life, within the chambers of your heart, within the familiar rhythms and routines of your daily existence. And this newly created empty space, while initially, almost inevitably, feeling like a vast, painful, echoing void, a stark, constant, and unwelcome reminder of what has been irrevocably lost, holds within its apparent emptiness an immense, often entirely unrecognized, and truly transformative creative potential. Most men don't realize they're running out of time until it's already too late. Not for money, not for success, but for something far more important. If you're over 60, this isn't just a video, it's a warning, because the habits, regrets, and silent killers you ignore now are the same ones that leave most men bitter, broken, and forgotten. Stay until the end, because the final message, that's the one that could save your future. Hidden gold, deep within the subterranean chambers of every man who has traversed the long, arduous, and often bewildering path of many decades, there lies an extraordinary, largely untapped vein of hidden gold. This is not the common, easily accessible gold that glitters on the surface of worldly achievements, nor is it the fleeting currency of societal approval that so many spend their entire lives desperately seeking. No, this gold is of an entirely different order, infinitely more rare, immeasurably more precious, profoundly more enduring. It is an alchemical substance, meticulously forged in the intense, transformative fires of lived experience, distilled from the very essence of countless moments, both luminous and shadowed. Consider the silent, often solitary lessons learned in the stark face of heartbreaking loss, the quiet, unyielding resilience painstakingly forged in the unforgiving crucible of repeated adversity, the profound, boundless compassion that blossoms only after one's own heart has been shattered open and tenderly mended 1,000 times over, the unshakable diamond-like clarity that finally dawns after navigating through dense, disorienting fogs of confusion, doubt, and existential angst. This is the gold of embodied wisdom, the pure bullion of authentic character. Yet society, with its insatiable appetite for the new, the fast, the superficially brilliant, and the easily consumable, has become tragically blind to this subtle inner luminescence. It has systematically trained its eyes, and indeed, it has conditioned your own eyes over a lifetime to seek and recognize value only in the external, in the tangible, in the quantifiable achievements that can be readily displayed, measured, compared, and ultimately commodified. And so, this invaluable inner gold, this sacred repository of profound, lived understanding, often remains buried, dormant, languishing beneath thick layers of ingrained societal conditioning, beneath the accumulated, unexamined dust of past regrets and unspoken sorrows, or hidden beneath the heavy, constricting cloak of outdated identities and roles that no longer serve your deepest, most authentic truth. You may have been subtly, persistently taught to view the lines etched upon your face not as sacred maps charting a journey of immense courage, profound learning, and remarkable endurance, but as mere, unwelcome signs of physical decay and diminishing relevance. You may have been implicitly or explicitly encouraged to silence the quiet, resonant voice of your accumulated experience, deeming its wisdom outdated, its pace too slow, its perspective irrelevant in a world that worships the fleeting idol of novelty and instant gratification above all else. But the hard truth, the potent secret that the prevailing culture dare not speak too loudly lest it disrupt its own fragile illusions, is that this hidden gold, this inner treasure, is the very bedrock of true unshakable strength, the inexhaustible source of authentic, abiding peace, and the luminous wellspring of a profound wisdom that can offer genuine guidance, deep solace, and transformative healing to a world desperately, tragically starving for depth, meaning, and authentic connection. The arduous yet profoundly rewarding process of excavating this personal gold requires a courageous, unwavering turning inward, a sustained willingness to sift with patience and compassion through the perceived rubble and debris of your past, not to dwell morbidly on what might have been or what was lost, but to lovingly, meticulously reclaim the precious, hard-won insights, the resilient, often invisible strengths, the refined, enduring qualities of character that were uniquely forged in the very heart of those challenging experiences. It is the sacred alchemy of transforming the leaden weight of past regrets into the luminous gold of present understanding, the bitter dregs of past disappointments into the sweet, healing nectar of boundless compassion for yourself and for all beings. This is undeniably not a task for the faint of heart, nor for those unwilling to confront their own shadows, for it requires the courage to face the totality of your being, to embrace your imperfections with tenderness, and to make a deep, abiding peace with the entirety of your unique, unrepeatable journey. Yet, within this sacred excavation, this inner archaeology of the soul, lies the master key to unlocking a profound, unshakable sense of self-acceptance, an unwavering inner authority, and an intrinsic dignity that no external circumstance, no societal judgment, no personal loss can ever diminish or extinguish. This hidden gold is your unique, sacred inheritance, your soul's most precious treasure, patiently, silently waiting to be brought forth into the light, not for boastful, egoic display, but to profoundly enrich your own being, to illuminate your remaining path with wisdom and grace, and to subtly yet powerfully light the way for those who walk alongside you and for those generations who will inevitably come after. It is the quiet, undeniable radiance of a life fully met, fully embraced, a wisdom that speaks not in loud, assertive pronouncements, but in the gentle, healing resonance of a deeply integrated, authentic, and compassionate presence. To continue to neglect this immense inner wealth is to condemn oneself to live in a state of self-imposed spiritual poverty, regardless of any external abundance one might have accumulated. To courageously reclaim it, to polish it, and to allow its light to shine forth is to finally step into the true, sovereign kingdom of your own magnificent being. Quiet Roar. Once you embark upon this sacred, often challenging, yet profoundly rewarding work of uncovering and claiming the hidden gold within your own being, you will inevitably begin to connect with, and indeed embody, an entirely different kind of power. A strength that possesses a quality and resonance far removed from the often aggressive, externally focused energies pursued in earlier stages of life. This is the quiet roar of your authentic self, the deep, resonant frequency of a spirit that has courageously weathered innumerable storms, faced countless challenges, and now stands, not in belligerent defiance or arrogant pride, but in profound, unshakable integrity and serene self-possession. This intrinsic power is vastly, qualitatively different from the often reactive, ego-driven force that many men, particularly in their younger, more turbulent and insecure years, relentlessly chase. The power to control outcomes, to conquer perceived enemies, to accumulate vast material possessions, to impress and dominate others. That kind of externally derived power, while it may indeed bring fleeting moments of egoic satisfaction or societal recognition, is ultimately dependent on external validation, on the approval and acquiescence of others, and is therefore inherently fragile, perpetually susceptible to the capricious, shifting winds of fortune, circumstance, and public opinion. The quiet roar, however, emanates from a much deeper, more reliable, and infinitely more sustainable source. It is the unwavering, indomitable strength of the ancient, weathered mountain, which has silently witnessed the dramatic rise and inevitable fall of empires, the cyclical changing of countless seasons, the endless, often tragicomic drama of human existence, yet remains steadfast, serene, its silent, imposing majesty a timeless testament to enduring presence and profound resilience. It is the potent, transformative power of profound stillness, the immense, subtle gravitational pull of a consciousness that is deeply, unshakably rooted in its own luminous center, unswayed and undisturbed by the superficial chaos, the incessant noise, and the often overwhelming demands of the external world. In the later, more contemplative seasons of life, the frantic, often utterly exhausting compulsion to constantly prove oneself, to relentlessly compete for recognition, to be seen, heard, and acknowledged at all costs, can begin to naturally, gracefully subside if you consciously allow it the space and permission to do so. What beautifully emerges in its place, if mindfully cultivated and patiently nurtured, is the profound, liberating strength of simply being, fully, authentically present in each unfolding moment, deeply anchored in your own truth, without hidden agenda, without protective pretense, without the need to perform or impress. This is a quality of strength, a form of power, that our hyperactive, relentlessly output-obsessed modern society often fails utterly to comprehend, much less to genuinely value or respect. It is frequently, tragically, mistaken for passivity, for disengagement, for a lamentable lack of ambition, or even for a sign of encroaching senility. But the profound truth, known to those who have walked the path of inner cultivation, is that this quiet roar of authentic presence, this unwavering embodiment of inner peace, holds a subtle yet formidable power that can move worlds, not through overt force, aggressive imposition, or loud manipulation, but through gentle resonance, through the silent, compassionate transmission of deep wisdom, unshakable peace, and unconditional love. The graceful detachment that can, and often does, beautifully blossom with advancing age, a gentle, liberating loosening of the fierce, often desperate and ultimately painful grip on specific outcomes, on cherished but outdated identities, on the compulsive need to be right or to control, is not, as some may fear, a sign of gloomy resignation or life-denying apathy. It is, in fact, a sacred gateway to profound clarity, to a way of seeing and experiencing life as it truly is, stripped bare of the distorting emotional projections, the deeply ingrained inherited biases, the fear-based illusions, and the self-serving egoic distortions that so often cloud and confuse younger, less experienced perception. The hard, liberating truth, the one that directly challenges the very foundations of a shallow materialistic worldview, is that true, enduring and transformative power is found not in relentless, exhausting external striving or accumulation, but in profound, consistent internal mastery and spiritual cultivation. It is discovered in the developed capacity for deep empathetic listening, both to the quiet whispers of your own soul and to the spoken and unspoken needs of others. It is found in the unwavering courage to embrace authentic vulnerability as a source of connection and strength. It is forged in the steadfast commitment to practicing boundless compassion, even and especially in the face of profound adversity, misunderstanding, or injustice. It is embodied in the profound, unshakable peace that naturally radiates from a heart that has made deep and lasting peace with itself and with the totality of existence. This quiet roar is the authentic, unobscured voice of your soul, finally liberated from the incessant, demanding clamor of the ego. It is the gentle yet irresistible force that naturally draws others towards your wisdom, your counsel, your presence, not because you command or demand their attention, but because they are instinctively, soulfully drawn to the authentic light, the profound stillness, and the unwavering compassion that you have come to embody. This intrinsic power does not diminish with the passage of years. On the contrary, it refines, it deepens, it concentrates, it becomes infinitely more potent, more pure, more impactful. It is the precious, hard-won inheritance of those rare individuals who have dared to walk the often challenging inner path, to courageously face their own inner dragons, their own shadows and illusions, and to emerge from those sacred battles, not unscathed, perhaps, but undeniably, magnificently whole. To consciously cultivate and confidently embody this quiet roar is to stand in your full, unadorned, authentic sovereignty, a silent, luminous testament to the enduring, transformative power of the awakened human spirit. Unseen crown. As you diligently continue this sacred inner work, consciously cultivating this profound, quiet roar that is rooted in the inexhaustible richness of your reclaimed hidden gold, you will find that you naturally begin to wear an unseen crown. This is not a crown of earthly dominion, wrought from precious metals and adorned with glittering jewels, to be displayed for the admiration or envy of others. This is a diadem of inherent, unshakable dignity and profound self-respect, a luminous insignia of your true spiritual sovereignty that requires no external anointing, no societal approval, no official recognition, no material insignia whatsoever to validate its radiant existence or confirm its intrinsic worth. This unseen crown is forged not from the fleeting ephemeral currency of worldly achievements, prestigious titles, or accumulated possessions, all of which are ultimately illusory, subject to the relentless tides of change and decay, but from the unwavering, deeply embodied knowing of your intrinsic unconditional worth as a human being, a worth that is not contingent upon what you do, what you have, or what others think of you, but is an inherent quality of your very existence, a spark of the divine woven into the fabric of your being. It is the resplendent crown of profound self-acceptance, polished to a brilliant sheen by the compassionate, unconditional embrace of your entire life story, with all its perceived imperfections, its unexpected detours, its moments of dazzling brilliance, and its periods of profound initiatory shadow. In a world that relentlessly, almost cruelly, bombards us from birth to death with subtle and overt messages of inadequacy, that constantly urges us to seek validation, approval, and a sense of worthiness outside of ourselves, to neurotically measure our value against impossible, arbitrary, and ever-shifting external standards. The courageous act of consciously claiming and wearing this unseen crown is a truly radical revolutionary act of profound spiritual liberation. It is a quiet yet powerful declaration of independence from the insidious tyranny of external opinion, a firm, unwavering standing in the undeniable, sacred truth of your own inviolable, magnificent being. The man who consciously wears this unseen crown moves through the world with a markedly different kind of presence, an aura of quiet authority and profound serenity that is palpable to those around him. There is a discernible lightness in his step, even if his physical body now carries the accumulated weight and wisdom of many years, for he is unburdened by the desperate, exhausting need to constantly impress, to perform, or to prove his worth to anyone. There is a penetrating clarity in his gaze, for he has learned to see beyond the superficial masks, the carefully constructed pretenses, and the fear-driven illusions that so many people unconsciously adopt as they navigate the complexities of life. There is an expansive warmth in his heart, a boundless compassion that flows freely, for he has made deep and lasting peace with his own complex humanity, with all its inherent contradictions and vulnerabilities, and can therefore meet the full humanity of others with genuine empathy, profound understanding, and unconditional acceptance. This unseen crown is also, most significantly, the crown of true, enduring legacy. We are often taught by a society focused on the material and the measurable that legacy is primarily about the tangible things we manage to accumulate and leave behind, the wealth we amass, the monuments we build, the institutions we establish, the descendants who carry our name. And while these things may indeed have their place and their own form of significance, the most profound, most lasting, and most transformative legacy is not etched in stone or recorded in bank accounts. It is delicately, powerfully woven from the intangible, luminous threads of our being, the consistent quality of our presence, the unwavering depth of our love, the embodied wisdom we share through our actions and our being, the profound peace we radiate into the world simply by existing authentically. It is the subtle, far-reaching ripple effect of a life lived with unwavering integrity, unyielding courage, genuine humility, and boundless compassion. An influence that often extends far beyond our conscious knowing or immediate perception, touching hearts, inspiring minds, and shaping lives in ways we may never fully comprehend this side of eternity. The hard, often resisted truth, one that our fiercely achievement-oriented and youth-idolizing culture struggles profoundly to grasp, is that your greatest, most impactful contribution in these precious later years may very well not be found in more doing, more striving, more building, or more accumulating, but rather in the profound resonant quality of your being. It is not about adding yet more accomplishments to an already lengthy resume, but about consciously deepening the luminous resonance of your soul, about polishing the mirror of your consciousness until it reflects the pure light of truth. The elder who gracefully wears this unseen crown, who naturally embodies this quiet yet profound dignity, becomes a living sanctuary, a vital source of grounding, wisdom, and unconditional love for those who are still caught in the turbulent, often confusing currents of worldly striving and egoic pursuits. His very presence itself becomes a powerful, silent teaching, a living, breathing reminder of what truly matters in the grand scheme of existence. He doesn't necessarily need to offer unsolicited advice, deliver lengthy discourses, or engage in overt acts of guidance. His very way of being, his characteristic calm in the midst of storms, his profound acceptance of what is, his gentle, knowing humor, his unwavering, compassionate gaze, speaks volumes more eloquently than any words could ever convey. This is not a passive state of resignation, but an active, dynamic embodiment of years, often decades, of dedicated inner work, of conscious spiritual cultivation, of courageous shadow integration. It is the unmistakable radiance of a spirit that has finally, joyfully, come home to itself, that rests securely and peacefully in its own inherent, timeless majesty. To consciously claim and wear this unseen crown is to courageously affirm your rightful sacred place in the grand, intricate tapestry of existence, not as a fading, irrelevant thread, but as a vital, luminous, and indispensable strand, contributing its unique, irreplaceable hue and intricate texture to the magnificent, unfolding whole. It is to recognize with every fiber of your being that your life, in its magnificent, messy, and sacred entirety, is a precious offering, and that your final chapters, far from being a period of decline, can be the most beautiful, the most resonant, the most profoundly meaningful, and the most spiritually fruitful of all. Sacred letting, the often winding, sometimes challenging, yet ultimately liberating path to authentically wearing this unseen crown, to fully embodying that resonant, quiet roar, is meticulously, patiently paved with the profound spiritual practice of sacred letting, a continuous, conscious, and often profoundly courageous act of release that gradually becomes the central, most vital spiritual discipline of life's later, more contemplative seasons. This is not, as it is so frequently and tragically misunderstood by a culture terrified of emptiness and addicted to accumulation, a passive, sorrowful surrender to inevitable decay, nor is it a mournful, reluctant resignation to unavoidable loss. Rather, sacred letting, when understood and practiced from a place of wisdom, is an active, courageous, and exhilaratingly liberating engagement with the fundamental, undeniable truth of impermanence. A wholehearted, graceful embrace of the natural, cyclical rhythm of arising, abiding, and passing away that governs every aspect of manifest existence, from the grandest galaxies to the most fleeting thought. For many decades, you have likely and often unconsciously been engaged in a process of accumulation, not just the amassing of material possessions, which can themselves become heavy anchors, but also the accumulation of identities, roles, beliefs, opinions, emotional attachments, deeply ingrained grievances, and rigid, often unrealistic, expectations of yourself, of others, and of life itself. You have painstakingly, often with great effort, built intricate fortresses around your ego, carefully constructed and fiercely defended narratives about who you are, what you stand for, what you are entitled to, and what you fear losing. And while these psychological and emotional structures may have provided a temporary sense of security, identity, or purpose in earlier phases of your life, they can, in the later chapters, transform into heavy, burdensome chains, constricting, suffocating prisons that prevent your soul from soaring into its fullest, most expansive, and most authentic expression. Sacred letting, therefore, involves the meticulous, compassionate, and often painstaking dismantling of these outdated, life-denying structures. It is the unwavering willingness to look with unflinching, courageous honesty at the myriad attachments that still bind you, that subtly or overtly still cause you suffering, that persistently prevent you from experiencing the profound, unshakable peace and quiet joy that is, in fact, your inherent birthright. This profound practice may involve the conscious, deliberate letting go of deeply ingrained, often cherished regrets, those persistent, haunting ghosts of the past that whisper insidious tales of if only and what if, relentlessly pulling your precious attention away from the vibrant aliveness and sacred potential of the ever-present now. It means courageously releasing the fierce, often unconscious grip on specific outcomes, on the deeply conditioned need for life to unfold neatly according to your meticulously crafted, ego-driven plans, and instead, consciously cultivating a deep, abiding trust in the unfolding, often mysterious wisdom of life itself, recognizing that there is a larger intelligence at play. It requires the courageous, often humbling, surrender of cherished, long-held identities. The identity of the successful executive, the revered expert, the strong, infallible patriarch, the indispensable provider. Roles that, while once central and perhaps even essential to your sense of self, may now be subtly obscuring the emergence of a deeper, more authentic, and infinitely more expansive self, a self that is not primarily defined by its doing, its accomplishments, or its external roles, but by the luminous quality of its being, its presence, its essence. It is about consciously relinquishing the often unconscious, deeply ingrained addiction to being right, the compulsive need to win every argument, to have the last word, to assert your intellectual or moral superiority, and instead consistently choosing the higher path of peace, mutual understanding, genuine connection, and compassionate dialogue. The hard, often fiercely resisted truth, the one that the ego, in its desperate bid for self-preservation, vehemently denies, is that our deepest, most persistent suffering often arises not directly from the challenging circumstances of our lives, but from our fierce, unyielding, and ultimately futile attachment to how we believe those circumstances should be, how we should be, how others should be. We desperately cling to fleeting pleasure and vehemently resist unavoidable pain. We frantically grasp for illusory security and deeply fear inherent uncertainty. We stubbornly fight against the natural, inevitable flow of change, and in doing so, we create immense, exhausting inner friction, profound psycho-emotional tension, and pervasive, life-draining dis-ease. Sacred letting is the powerful, gentle antidote to this self-inflicted suffering. It is the mindful, graceful yet potent act of consciously opening your clenched hand, of releasing your tightened fist, of allowing the river of life, with all its currents and eddies, to flow freely through you without resistance, without judgment, without clinging. This transformative practice creates precious, invaluable space, inner space, emotional space, mental space, spiritual space. And in that newfound liberating spaciousness, something entirely new, incredibly beautiful, and profoundly healing can finally arise. A deep, unshakable sense of inner freedom, a palpable lightness of being, a quiet, unconditional joy that is not dependent on external conditions or circumstances, and a profound, abiding connection to the timeless, luminous sanctuary of the present moment. It is in essence a conscious emptying of the vessel of the self, not to become a desolate void, but to become fully, joyfully available to be filled with the pure, unfiltered light of unconditioned awareness, with the boundless, unconditional compassion of an open, undefended heart. This is not a one-time monumental event, a single act of grand renunciation, but rather an ongoing, moment-by-moment practice, a daily conscious choosing of freedom over bondage, of expansive peace over constricting conflict, of graceful surrender over exhausting, futile struggle. It is the sacred, transformative art of dying to the old, the outdated, the illusory, in each unfolding moment, so that you can be continuously, gloriously reborn into the luminous, liberating truth of who you truly, authentically are, beyond all names, all forms, all concepts, all limitations. Final horizon. And as you courageously, patiently, and diligently walk this profound inner path, the path of uncovering and sharing your invaluable hidden gold, of embodying and radiating your resonant, quiet roar, of gracefully wearing your inherent unseen crown, and of consistently, compassionately practicing the sacred, liberating art of letting go, you will inevitably find yourself approaching the final horizon of this earthly journey, not with mounting trepidation, overwhelming fear, or bitter resentment, but rather with a profound, burgeoning sense of deep curiosity, radical acceptance, and perhaps even a quiet, reverent, and inexplicable awe. The prevailing societal narrative surrounding mortality, the one most of us have been deeply conditioned by since birth, is predominantly one of pervasive dread, of an ultimate, undeniable defeat, a final tragic ending to be resisted, denied, and postponed at all conceivable costs. But this too, it must be understood, is a perspective born from a limited, purely material, and ultimately illusory understanding of existence, a view that fails to encompass the vaster, more expansive spiritual realities. From a deeper, more inclusive spiritual vantage point, this final horizon, this transition we call death, is not a terrifying nihilistic abyss into which we helplessly fall, but rather a magnificent sacred gateway, a profound transformative transition into a vaster, more luminous and infinitely more expansive reality, a conscious, joyful merging with the very source, the boundless, unmanifest consciousness from which all life, all forms, all experiences originally emanate, and to which they ultimately, peacefully return. The pervasive fear of death, that primal anxiety which consciously or unconsciously drives so much of human striving, so much neurotic ambition, so much interpersonal conflict, and so much existential suffering, begins to naturally, gradually lose its formidable, paralyzing power when you have diligently, consistently cultivated a deep experiential connection with the timeless, formless, luminous essence of your own being. That indestructible part of you, that pure awareness, that was never truly born in the conventional sense and can therefore never truly die. When you have repeatedly, directly tasted the profound, unshakable peace of the present moment, when you have experienced firsthand the boundless, exhilarating freedom that comes from courageously letting go of egoic attachments, identifications, and fears, the idea of the body's eventual, inevitable dissolution no longer holds the same terrifying, all-consuming grip upon your consciousness. You begin to understand, not merely as an intellectual concept, but as a deeply felt, embodied realization in the very cells of your being, that you are infinitely more than this transient physical form, infinitely more than this accumulated collection of memories and fleeting experiences, infinitely more than this limited, conditioned individual personality with its likes, dislikes, hopes, and fears.